for some help, hope, and healing. Every day's a new beginning. Tap into your feelings and giving life new meaning. No matter the time of day, His grace and mercy goes with you along the way. Help, hope, and healing. Every day's a new beginning. Get in step with Nicole.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get in Step with Nicole. I am your host, Nicole Horston, and today we're going to just have a conversation because I have a special guest, and Mr. Horston is actually my husband, and he is one of the authors in the book Pearls of Wisdom: Stories, Strategies, and the Will to Soar. And so before we get started with our conversation, I wanted to read something that you wrote, Antoine. And it says, "The funny thing about life is that it still has a way of reminding you who's boss and in control. We try to wrestle with it, but for some reason, we end up short. We are in control of what we can control, but ultimately, God controls it all." I really like that. And then it says, "The actual test of your faith comes when the calamities of life befall you and you find yourself alone." I want to use, because I always have a theme, okay? So when I was reading through your story and a couple of the other ones, it kept resonating with me with your title. And your title within the book is Me Against the World. And so as I was reading this, I just want you to just tell me what was going through your mind when you entitled this chapter, Me Against the World. Help our audience understand a little bit about you from what I just read.
Well, when I put Me Against the World in there, it was simply saying that there was nobody else there to help me and guide me in that situation as a man, okay? I'm not talking about you being my spouse and the other women in my family. We're talking about men. I was the only one in my family to have this disease, and being that I was 29 years old when this happened in 1999.
So let's catch them up real quick about you're a transplant recipient.
That's correct.
And let's take them back because, of course, you and I know one another because we're husband and wife. But let's help the audience get into our story. So you came home, you was a railman.
That's correct.
Working on the railroad, and you traveled a lot.
Yes, I did.
And I don't know, I just remember the phone call with them calling and telling me that you had a nosebleed that wouldn't stop. So
Well,
take us
what
from that
actually
point and then
happened-
bring us forward.
What actually happened, we was in Willard, Ohio, putting in new rail, and I had my hard hat on, and I fell down,
Okay.
and my helmet cracked, and my nose started bleeding. And from there, it snowballed. They took me to the emergency room, and that's when they called you, your Uncle Damon, and then was there with me until they got in contact with you to let you know what was going on, because we all worked on the railroad together.
And so once we got that call, to me, looking back, even though all of the stuff that has happened through your story, and we have to really get our audience into this, but that was, like you said, the snowball effect, because that one nosebleed took us on a whirlwind.
Yes.
Because when you were in the hospital, we actually found out that you were in kidney failure.
Yes, we did.
And I know it's a very touching story for both of us, but we're here today just to simply help you if you are going through a health crisis or you're a caregiver for your spouse or any other family member. But we thought it was just very, very beneficial that we come as a united front to help someone in the viewing audience to get through when they feel, like you said, it's them against the world.
Correct, because mainly men are kind of scared to go to the doctors. And so without going to the doctor on a regular basis and then working, we push ourselves to the limit because that's what we're taught as young boys, to be men and to be strong and not to be weak. So therefore, that's why I said I was by myself mentally, not physically.
Okay, there
but
we go.
Mentally. So if you have any problems, you need to talk to someone or find someone that you can talk to about your problem.
So let me help you out with this. So, because we're still taking them on this journey with us. And so you was in kidney failure. And in fact, we were just newlywed for a couple of years. But then they came to me and the doctors asked me, what did I want to do? And of course I said, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do in this instance because it's something that has never happened to
That's
us.
correct.
And of course, we generally make our decisions together. But in that moment, I even felt it was me and just me against the world and making a decision, a life-altering decision. But we found out that you had kidney failure. And actually your left kidney had, gone out first, and then ultimately while you were in this thing. And so you had to go on to dialysis.
Yes.
Okay, and so can you tell me, you said like you were 29 years old.
Yes.
And so that was fairly young, but
Yes, I
you
was
know.
in my prime. So I started dialysis May 8th, 1999. I went to dialysis Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I was there for 4.5 hours. It takes 15 minutes to put you on and 15 minutes to take you off. That's how you come up with 4.5 hours.
So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. In order to live, you had to go on dialysis. And so for those of you who, may not know what kidney dialysis is, there's peritoneal, where you can do it yourself, or hemodialysis, which you go to a dialysis center. And of course, that's what Antoine did. He actually went to a dialysis center 3 days a week for 4.5 hours. And I want to talk about your chapter again. It says, when my kidneys failed and dialysis was my only immediate option, because of course we didn't have a family member or anyone, a friend, who would donate a kidney, because you can live with one kidney, but we didn't have anyone actually to step up and say, and I know I wasn't imagining our son was, but then you felt that our son was too young.
That's correct. Even though we had the same makeup, DNA for a transplant, I didn't want to take his life away from him with him being so young. My son at the time, his name is Antoine, was only 7 years old. And I just thought that would be selfish of me to ask, even though he really didn't know that, but he wanted to save his dad. You understand? He was like, well, Dad, I gave you my kidney, and I'm trying to tell him, you got a long way to go, buddy. So in that sense, I just wanted to be there for them and see him graduate.
So let's talk about that first treatment. So you said after the first treatment, I decided I was not going to live on a machine for the rest of my life, talking about the dialysis machine. I believe in God, and I feel that whatever God has for me, I will allow it to run its course. And when it was my time to go, it was my time to go, and I was okay with that. And I mean, I applaud you for having that strong faith, because I know that's your father, who was a military father.
Yes.
Always taught you to, boy, you got to have faith. And that was one of the steadfast things that he always encouraged you. And you come from a family of believers.
That's correct.
But in that moment, you said you're going to let life run its course. And when it was your time to go, you were okay with it. So what brought about that sense of peace in you, even though, you were saying that you were feeling alone? What brought about that sense of peace in the midst of a calamity?
I wanted to see my children grow up, and I lost my dad as a teenager, and I didn't feel that our kids should lose me as their parent to help them through their problems. So that's the reason why I decided to do the dialysis, along with my mom being a dialysis technician since I've been since 1970.
So now let's get into, I'm going to just really take us through this, because it was hard. But one thing we found together was our faith as believers. And so you was on dialysis for how long?
13 years.
13 years. And I saw you myself. Friends witnessed you. People at our church witnessed how dialysis ravaged the body. Like, there was days that you would be cramping.
Yes.
And we couldn't do anything about it other than let it pass.
Right.
You were extremely tired. But yet, you still pushed forward for the family. What really, you talked to God and you asked God, you had a conversation with him, because you said that you had a conversation with God. And the first phone call came.
Yes.
And so when you got on the dialysis list, that first phone call came. Tell me, how did you feel when you knew that there was a potential donor? Like, right after you prayed, even though you waited 13 years to get your answer, we're going to put a pin in that. 13 years to get your answer. Then the answer came. Tell me about that.
Well, when the center called and said, Mr. Horston, we have a kidney for you. Would you like to receive it? And the call came from Cleveland Clinic. So my wife was at school. She was a school teacher at the time. My son had just come home from school. He was in high school. And I already had my bag packed. So I told my son, go get your mom, because her school was about 2 miles away from the house. Mm-hmm. And I was calling my wife and calling her. And what ended up happening is they was on a lockdown. So since she was on a lockdown, she couldn't answer the phone.
Right. So when you're in school and there's danger around the school goes under a lockdown, which means everything is locked down. All the doors, no one can get in, no one can get out. Now, we're going to take you somewhere with this. So stick with us. We're going somewhere with this. He waited 13 years to get his answer. When the answer came, everything was prepared, but then yet there was another obstacle, because I couldn't leave the school because the school was under a lockdown. All right, so then AJ, our son, he leaves. But what was going through your head? Like, did you have a conversation with God after this phone call? I mean, what, I know it's been a while, but just take us back just a little bit to help someone.
I remember if it just happened.
Yes.
So, as you know, that our bedroom was above the garage in the house. I come downstairs with the bag, and I just said thank you, because there was other family members who had got kidney transplants, but I had been on there the longest. So, with that being said, I was just thanking God that it's finally come.
It's finally your turn.
Right.
Because matter of fact, you had actually 2 or 3.
Right.
relatives who
correct.
have since passed on, but
Yes.
2 of them who actually got on diagnosed after you were diagnosed with kidney failure.
That's correct.
And we found that it was something that ran on the male side of your family. So you were the first to be told you had it in your family.
Mm-hmm.
Watch this now. But then 2 of your family members, God bless them ahead of your time, but you were still supportive
Yes.
in their care. And I wanted to put that in there because, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of times when we see others being blessed, we said, Lord, when will it be our turn? But yet, if we believe like we say we believe in God, and when we ask, seek, and find, he will be near. He will be near. And we have prayed and asked and prayed and asked God to give you a kidney.
Yes.
And then when that time came, our son came to the school, and my principal, my boss, actually, some things it's great to talk about, but it still gives you a sense of gratitude. Because even though we were in that lockdown, by the time our son had gotten to the school, and my classroom was in the back, it was a 1-story school building, but my classroom was in the back of the building, back by the parking lot. So it was a run to get to where I was. And all of the staff at the school was aware of my husband's situation because they had been praying with us. And that's when you were talking about having people in your life earlier on the onset of the program, when you said people there to support you.
Correct.
So my principal called downtown, which is our school board, our head house, and got a clearance for me to leave. And when she said, Miss Horston, we need you in the main office. Your husband got a kidney. And everyone in the school building, I know, honey, it's okay. Yes. Yes. Everyone in the school building, even the children, was screaming and clapping as my son and I ran back to the front of the school building for us to leave. And I know it's a blessing, honey. So, you know, we cry tears of joy because we know what you've been through. And those of you who are going through illnesses and sickness, you need to know that God is still in the blessing business. And that was one of the reasons today when you said, you know, I'm really ready to share my story, that you wanted people to know. And
Especially
just go
men.
ahead and yes, especially men. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, like, men as a whole, who's ever watching, you know, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to go to the doctor. A lot of us are having diabetes and high blood pressure, and those do have a factor into your kidney as well. So I just hope that you get the message through this conversation so that you will take better care of yourself.
Good. I thank you. And so the children, the school erupted, everyone was clapping, and I had got so excited that I had even forgotten my purse at the school. And when we figured that out, my principal said, don't worry about it. It's safe. You guys go ahead and we'll be praying for you. And so when we got there, now this is the first obstacle. The second obstacle was the school being locked under the lockdown. But then the third obstacle was when we did get to Cleveland Clinic.
Yes.
One of the top hospitals in the nation. We got there and we were told that you couldn't get the kidney yet because all the excitement of us driving there and just, you know, the what ifs, your blood pressure was too high.
It was too high.
And so that was on September the 9th.
9/9/11.
Right. So you have this like funny saying, or we do in our family, that 9, 10, 11 is our blessing. 9, 10, 11 is our blessing. Because on September the 10th, 2011, after 13 years of waiting, you got a transplant.
That's correct.
Yes. Yes. And then, of course, the first thing that you said to me after that long surgery, that you felt God, even though you felt like you were going through this, it was you against the world, you going through this all by yourself. You said that you told God something, and then you told me after it happened. But what did you tell God? That God, what would you do for him to show forth his mercy unto you?
Well, I explained to God, or told God, however you want to look at it, that if he gets me off this table with all my faculties, that I will do a good deed every day of my life when I wake up.
And you've held true to that, whether you've been sick, whether you've been tired, you've had other, responsibilities, but you held true to the vow that you made to God. Not that you were making a deal with God, because of course we can't do that. Like you said, in that he still has ultimate control. But a lot of times when I asked you to share that, because a lot of times when we ask God, to do something in our lives that we've prayed for, that we've waited for, and then we still don't see it happening as fast as we would have hoped it would, some of us become discouraged. Some of us even lose the faith that we at least started out with. But you maintained that God, whatever your will is, I'm going to stick to that. And if it's my time to go, then Father, I will accept it. And I even shared with you, and I'll share with you because you're listening to an intimate conversation, but we're bringing you into it today because we want you to know that even though it may seem like it's you against the world, because problems are befalling you, calamity is upon you, you have decisions to make in your life, and your health is compromised, it's challenged. But they that wait upon the Lord, I'll put a pin right there because he waited. And even when he got to the finish line, as we'll put it, for this particular conversation, he still had the obstacle. And I told him, the first obstacle was one for the Father, the other one was for the Son, and the third was for the Holy Spirit. Because, we get sometimes where it flusters us and we don't know which way to turn. And it's like, okay, God, I do what you ask of me. Show forth your mercy to me. And actually, it did increase your faith. Like each person that you've helped, I've seen you. Our neighbors have seen you. The community has seen you grow in Christ as a result of your blessing, because you took that very seriously. So doing the good deeds in life, every day is not a bed of roses, but how do you look at your life now? Whereas you once felt it was you against the world, what have you learned in your Christian walk?
That he was there all along.
Oh, hallelujah. And this isn't scripted. It's just a conversation for a person who once told me, and he even shared it in the book, that my wife has asked me to speak about this so many times, which I have, because I said, honey, you can help someone. And in fact, you went back to your dialysis center where you had spent 13 years. You've helped create a bond with the people there, and you even started doing an annual cookout for the people who were still on dialysis and their family members. And then people also started asking you what, this is, like they couldn't believe that you were doing it. Like, because, once people, receive the transplant, they don't go back to the center. But you even went back and started talking to those family members, and you started advocating for those who had What made you do that? Like, what made you go back to a place where you found agony and you felt defeat? What made you go back to help them?
Well, each day, I'm not really sure about the timing, but I think it's like every 14 or 13 minutes, someone starts dialysis.
Okay.
And with me having the information, I just wanted to share it with them and let them know that it's still hope to receive a kidney and that you can go to more than one place.
And that's right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first steps of this, and of course, we want you to just stay this. We're going to put a pin in the story because it's so much to tell and it's so much to learn when you're on dialysis. And, you know, we want you to give you just a little bit of the story of just being steadfast and never giving up and getting the information that you need, correct?
That's correct.
Because when you were helping them, you were actually like helping them find resources. You were helping them find, you know, a good doctor or a nephrologist, the kidney doctor specialist to go to. And so that has now become your ministry.
That's right.
So this once shy person is now growing a ministry, helping others. I appreciate you being here, honey. I appreciate you sharing your story. Because a better me, which means me and you individually, makes a better we together. And I know we're two individuals, but God has blessed us both through health challenges. So I just want to say that I'm proud of you for never giving up, for having faith, and for you really saying, God, you're in control. Because a lot of times when we say this, ladies and gentlemen, the enemy comes and makes us waver. And then when it doesn't look right or go according to plan, it makes us feel like we're against the world. But today we wanted to encourage your spirit to let you know that God will never leave you. He will never forsake you. All you have to do is trust. Just a little seed, the size of a mustard seed, and he will move mountains. So if you want to stay tuned with us, just go to my website, www.getinstep.com. Again, that's www.get, the letter N, and the word step, STEP.com. Remember, no matter the time of day, it is always a great time to get in step and soar. And I believe today's story will help you do just that. Antoine, thank you again for being my special guest. Thank you for sharing your story. And I pray God's blessings upon you. Tune in next time for more Getting in Step with Nicole.